Human janitor found sealed metal door in alien's garden. Inside were humans missing for 300 years. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. In the gleaming spires of Zalarian Station, where 7 species coexisted in an uneasy alliance, Tyler Grant was just another human maintenance worker, a small cog in a vast interstellar machine. The artificial day cycle of Zalarian Station was beginning as Tyler made his way through the bustling corridors, dodging diplomats and merchants from across the galaxy. His worn gray maintenance uniform stood in stark contrast to the ornate garments of the alien dignitaries. At 35, Tyler had been working as a station janitor for nearly a decade, ever since the economic collapse on Earth's outer colonies had forced him to seek work farther from home. "Grant, you're late again," barked Supervisor Drex, a bulky Novalian with mottled green skin and 4 piercing yellow eyes. The Novalians managed most of the station's maintenance operations, primarily because they could tolerate the harsh chemicals used in the cleaning processes. "Sorry, sir. Transport tube malfunction in Sector 7, Tyler replied, keeping his head down as he collected his work tablet. The device lit up with his assignments for the day. Drex made a dismissive gesture with one of his forearms. "You're assigned to the Telosian ambassador's residence today. Ambassador Carrix specifically requested human maintenance staff." Tyler's stomach tightened. The Telosians were the most advanced species on the station, and they rarely interacted with humans. In the galactic hierarchy, Earth was a newcomer, barely 3 centuries into interstellar travel. Compared to the Telosians, who had been traversing the stars for millennia, humans were practically infants. "Is there a problem?" Drex asked, narrowing his upper set of eyes. "No problem, sir," Tyler said quickly. "I'll head there now." As Tyler made his way to the diplomatic quarter, he couldn't help but wonder why a Telosian ambassador would specifically request a human janitor. The Telosians viewed humans with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. They were tall, willowy beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors according to their emotional states. Their technological achievements were legendary, and rumors persisted that they possessed abilities bordering on the mystical. The diplomatic residences occupied the uppermost levels of Zalarian Station, with expansive views of the surrounding nebula. Tyler had to pass through 3 security checkpoints before reaching Ambassador Carrix's quarters. At each one, the guards, a mix of robotic sentries and Dragorian security personnel, scanned his credentials with suspicion. "Maintenance," Tyler explained at the final checkpoint, holding up his work tablet. The Dragorian guard, a reptilian humanoid with armored plates along its spine, examined the authorization code and reluctantly stepped aside. "The ambassador is expecting you. Do not deviate from your assigned tasks." Tyler nodded and passed through the final set of doors into the ambassador's residence. The contrast with the rest of the station was immediate and stunning. While most of Zalarian was utilitarian in design, all brushed metal and practical furnishings, the ambassador's quarters were a lush oasis of alien beauty. Living plants from a dozen worlds filled the entrance hall, their exotic blooms releasing sweet, unfamiliar scents. Water trickled down crystalline structures that seemed to float unsupported in midair. The ceiling was a perfect recreation of Telos Prime's night sky, complete with its 3 moons and scattered star clusters. "You must be the maintenance human," a melodious voice said from behind him. Tyler turned to find Ambassador Carrix observing him. The Telosian was nearly 7 feet tall, with skin that currently displayed a pattern of curious blue swirls against a silver background. Like all Telosians, the ambassador had 4 slender arms and a face that was unsettlingly human-like, despite its alien proportions. "Yes, Ambassador." "Tyler Grant, Station Maintenance," Tyler said with a small bow, remembering the protocol training all human workers received. "Excellent. I have a special task for you today, Tyler Grant," the ambassador said, pronouncing Tyler's name with precise, deliberate care. "My personal garden requires attention. The automated systems are malfunctioning, and several of my rarer specimens are suffering." Tyler blinked in surprise. I'm not a botanist, Ambassador. I'm just a janitor. A ripple of amusement, bright yellow spirals, passed across the Telosian's skin. I am well aware of your qualifications. This is a matter of simple maintenance. The irrigation systems need recalibration, and certain sections require manual cleaning. I specifically requested a human because your species has demonstrated a particular aptitude for improvisation in maintenance matters. There was something in the ambassador's tone that made Tyler uneasy, but refusing an assignment from a Telosian ambassador would be career suicide. I'll do my best, Ambassador. I'm certain you will, Carrick's replied. Follow me. The ambassador led Tyler deeper into the residence, past rooms filled with artifacts that were likely older than human civilization. They passed several other Telosians who regarded Tyler with expressions that ranged from curiosity to thinly veiled contempt. Finally, they reached a massive set of doors crafted from what appeared to be living wood, inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift and change as Tyler looked at them. My garden, Carrick's announced, placing a long-fingered hand against the door. The symbols flared briefly, and the doors swung open silently. Tyler had expected something impressive, but the reality surpassed anything he could have imagined. The garden was an enormous biodome, at least 100 meters across, filled with a bewildering array of plant life from countless worlds. A simulated sun hung overhead, providing perfect illumination, while small flying creatures, part insect, part bird, darted among the foliage. This is incredible, Tyler breathed, momentarily forgetting his place. Carrick's skin rippled with pleasure, purple and gold patterns this time. It is a small reminder of home. The irrigation systems that require your attention are primarily in the central and eastern sections. The ambassador gestured with one slender arm toward a dense copse of silver-barked trees. I have meetings for the remainder of the day. You will have privacy to complete your work. Tyler nodded, still overwhelmed by the scale and beauty of the garden. One final thing, Carrick's added, almost as an afterthought. The western section, beyond the Redstone Arch, is undergoing a special cultivation process. It is strictly off-limits. Do you understand? Yes, Ambassador, Tyler replied automatically. Excellent. The system schematics are available on your tablet. I will return in 6 hours to inspect your progress. With that, Carrick's turned and glided back through the doors, which sealed themselves behind the ambassador. Tyler stood alone in the alien garden, feeling distinctly out of place in his gray maintenance uniform. With a sigh, he consulted his tablet, which had indeed been updated with detailed schematics of the irrigation system. The work seemed straightforward enough. Recalibrate flow regulators, clear blocked filtration units, and perform basic maintenance on the moisture sensors. For the next several hours, Tyler worked methodically through the garden, marveling at the alien flora as he went. Some plants responded to his presence, either recoiling or reaching out with curious tendrils. Others remained motionless, but emitted subtle changes in color or scent as he passed. The irrigation system was indeed malfunctioning. Though the problems were minor, the sort of issues that the ambassador's automated systems should have easily handled. By mid-afternoon, Tyler had completed most of the assigned tasks. As he worked on the final section, near the boundary of the restricted western area, he noticed something odd. According to the schematics, the irrigation system should have extended into the western section, but the pipes simply ended at the boundary marked by the Redstone Arch. Curiosity piqued, Tyler approached the arch. Beyond it lay a dense thicket of dark purple vegetation unlike anything in the rest of the garden. The plants seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating an area of unnatural shadow. Tyler took a cautious step closer, staying just outside the boundary. That's when he noticed it, a faint metallic gleam among the dense foliage. At first, he thought it might be part of the irrigation system, but as he peered closer, he realized it was something else entirely. Something that definitely wasn't on any of the schematics. I shouldn't, Tyler muttered to himself, remembering the ambassador's explicit warning. But there was something about that metallic gleam that tugged at his curiosity. It seemed out of place in the organic chaos of the garden. Tyler glanced back at the main doors, which remained firmly closed. He checked the time on his tablet. He still had nearly 2 hours before the ambassador was due to return. Making a quick decision, he stepped under the redstone arch and into the restricted area. The air was different here, heavier, with an underlying scent that was strangely familiar, though he couldn't quite place it. The purple plants parted reluctantly as he pushed through them, releasing a fine mist that made his skin tingle. The metallic gleam grew brighter as he approached, and gradually, its shape became clear. It was a door, a massive, sealed metal door set into what appeared to be a rough stone wall that was almost entirely concealed by the surrounding vegetation. The door was made of a dull gray metal that Tyler recognized with a shock. It was human-manufactured titanium alloy, the same material used in early Earth colony ships. "What the hell?" Tyler whispered, reaching out to touch the cold metal surface. The door was inscribed with faded lettering in standard Earth English. Emergency access. ESS Horizon. The ESS Horizon. Tyler knew that name from his history lessons. It was one of Earth's first long-range colony ships, launched over 3 centuries ago during the initial expansion. The Horizon had vanished without a trace while exploring an uncharted sector. This sector. Its disappearance had remained one of the greatest mysteries in human space exploration. But how could a door from the Horizon be here, in a Telosian ambassador's private garden on Zalarian Station? Tyler's heart pounded as he examined the door more closely. There was a standard emergency release panel at its center, old technology, but recognizable. On impulse, he pressed his hand against it. To his astonishment, the panel lit up with a soft blue glow, and he heard the unmistakable sound of an atmospheric seal disengaging. With a low hiss, the door began to slide open. Tyler stepped back, suddenly afraid of what he might find. Every instinct told him to walk away, to return to his assigned maintenance tasks and forget what he'd seen. But the historian in him, the part that had devoured stories of Earth's early space exploration before economic necessity had forced him into maintenance work, couldn't turn away from this discovery. As the door completed its opening cycle, a rush of stale air wafted out. Tyler activated the flashlight on his tablet and directed its beam into the darkness beyond. The light revealed a long, narrow corridor lined with the unmistakable architecture of an early Earth vessel. The walls were bare metal, adorned with safety notices and direction markers in standard Earth English. But what struck Tyler most was the pristine condition of everything. There was no dust, no decay. It looked as though the corridor had been sealed away only yesterday, not 3 centuries ago. Tyler took a tentative step inside, then another. The corridor extended about 20 meters before ending at another sealed door. The air was breathable, but had the slightly metallic taste of long-term life support systems. The overhead lights flickered to life as he moved forward, triggered by motion sensors that somehow still functioned after all this time. When he reached the second door, Tyler found another emergency panel similar to the exterior one. Again, it responded to his touch, glowing blue before initiating the opening sequence. The door slid aside to reveal something that made Tyler's blood run cold. Beyond the door lay a vast chamber, at least 50 meters across and nearly as high. The chamber was filled with rows upon rows of upright cylindrical pods, each about 2 meters tall, cryogenic suspension units. Tyler had seen similar technology in museums, the primitive ancestors of modern medical stasis fields. And inside each visible pod was the unmistakable silhouette of a human form. "Oh my God," Tyler whispered, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. He approached the nearest pod, wiping condensation from its viewing panel. Inside was a woman, appearing to be in her mid-30s, her face serene in suspended animation. A small digital readout on the pod displayed vital statistics and a name, Dr. Emily Caldwell, Chief Medical Officer. Tyler moved to the next pod. Commander James Reynolds, Mission Leader. And the next, Dr. Sanjay Patel, Xenobiologist. These weren't just any colonists. These were the senior crew of the ESS Horizon, preserved in cryogenic suspension for 3 centuries. As Tyler moved through the chamber, He counted dozens of active pods, then hundreds. If his estimate was correct, there could be over 1,000 humans preserved here. But why? Why would a Telosian ambassador have the missing crew of the Horizon hidden away in a secret chamber behind his garden? And more importantly, why were they still in suspension after all this time? A soft chime from Tyler's tablet jolted him from his thoughts, a reminder that he had less than an hour before Ambassador Carrix was due to return. He needed to make a decision quickly. He could leave now, report what he'd found to station security, and hope they took the word of a human janitor over that of a Telosian ambassador. Or he could try to find answers himself. Tyler made his choice. Moving quickly to what appeared to be a central control console, he began examining the systems. To his relief, the interface was in standard Earth English, though it was an archaic version. The console controlled the cryogenic systems for the entire chamber, monitoring life signs and maintaining the delicate balance needed to keep the occupants alive in suspension. But there was something else, a secured section labeled Mission Logs. Tyler hesitated only briefly before attempting to access it. To his surprise, the system accepted his credentials. Perhaps it was programmed to grant access to any human, or perhaps the security protocols had degraded over time. The screen filled with entries, hundreds of them, dating back to the Horizon's last recorded mission. Tyler selected the final entry, timestamped just before the ship's disappearance from Earth's tracking systems. A video began to play. Commander Reynolds appeared on screen, his face haggard with exhaustion, but his eyes bright with excitement. Mission log, final entry, Reynolds began. We've made contact with an advanced species calling themselves the Telosians. Their technology is beyond anything we've encountered, and they've expressed interest in establishing diplomatic relations with Earth. As a gesture of goodwill, they've invited the entire crew to visit their homeworld. Given the significance of this first contact, I've accepted their invitation. We'll be transferring the crew to their vessel via shuttle, with a skeleton crew remaining aboard the Horizon. If all goes well, this will mark a new chapter in human history. Reynolds out. The log ended, leaving Tyler staring at a blank screen. He quickly accessed earlier entries, skimming through them to piece together what had happened. The Horizon had been exploring an uncharted sector when they detected signals from a Telosian science vessel. First contact had proceeded peacefully, with the Telosians presenting themselves as benevolent explorers eager to welcome humanity into the galactic community. But there was no record of what had happened after the crew transferred to the Telosian vessel. No explanation for why they were now in suspended animation in a hidden chamber on Zalarian Station 3 centuries later. Tyler was about to access another file when he heard a sound from the entrance corridor. The outer door was closing. Someone had discovered the open door and was now sealing it again. He was trapped. Heart pounding, Tyler looked around frantically for a hiding place. The chamber was mostly open space, filled with the cryogenic pods. Then he spotted a maintenance alcove near the back wall, partially obscured by a bank of monitoring equipment. He ducked into it just as the inner door slid open. Ambassador Carrix entered the chamber, accompanied by 2 other Telosians. From his hiding place, Tyler could see that their skin displayed patterns of deep red and black, colors he hadn't observed before. The seal was breached, one of the Telosians said, its voice lacking the melodious quality Carrix typically displayed. A human biosignature was detected. The maintenance worker, Carrix replied, skin pulsing with angry red patterns. I should have anticipated this. Humans and their insatiable curiosity. It is of no consequence, said the third Telosian. The harvest is nearly ready. In a matter of days, it will not matter what one human has discovered. Tyler pressed himself deeper into the alcove, barely daring to breathe. Harvest? What harvest? Carrix moved to the central console, long fingers dancing across the controls. The suspension fields are stable. 3 centuries of careful cultivation, and soon we will reap the benefits. The genetic divergence has progressed exactly as predicted. The second Telosian approached one of the pods, placing a hand against the transparent surface. These specimens have developed the neurological structures we require. The isolation from their homeworld has accelerated the process. And the rest of humanity remains unaware, added the third. They still believe the horizon was lost to some cosmic accident. As it should be, Carrick said. Our arrangement with the other species is clear. We provide the advanced technology they desire, and in exchange, they permit us our small experiments. Humans are not to know their true place in the galaxy until the appropriate time. Tyler's mind raced as he tried to make sense of what he was hearing. The Telosians had deliberately captured the Horizon's crew, kept them in suspension for centuries as part of some experiment, and the other advanced species, including those that govern Zalarian Station, were complicit in this deception. What of the maintenance human? Asked the second Telosian. If he has discovered this place, then he will join our collection, Carrick replied coldly. One more specimen is always valuable. Search the chamber. He cannot have gone far. Tyler pressed himself against the wall of the alcove, desperately looking for a way out. The maintenance shaft behind him was barely large enough for a human to squeeze through, but it might lead somewhere. With no other options, Tyler began to ease himself backward into the shaft, moving as silently as possible. He'd barely entered the shaft when he heard one of the Telosians approaching his hiding place. Tyler froze, not even daring to breathe. The Telosian paused just outside the alcove, its shadow visible at the entrance. Ambassador, called the third Telosian from across the chamber. I believe I've found evidence of the human's presence near the eastern pods. The shadow withdrew as the Telosian moved away. Tyler released the breath he'd been holding and continued deeper into the maintenance shaft. It was narrow and dark, clearly designed for robotic maintenance drones rather than human workers, but Tyler was able to squeeze through by keeping his body as compact as possible. After what felt like an eternity of crawling through the claustrophobic space, Tyler reached a junction where the shaft widened slightly. A small access panel on one wall caught his attention. It was labeled in the same archaic English as the rest of the ship, Emergency Communications. Tyler's pulse quickened. If he could access the ship's communication systems, he might be able to send a message to station security or, better yet, to Earth directly. He carefully removed the panel, revealing a compact communication terminal that looked hopelessly outdated but appeared to be functional. Working quickly, Tyler activated the terminal. The ancient system hummed to life, displaying a basic interface. It was designed for emergency situations, with preset channels for distress calls. Tyler selected the broadband emergency frequency, a channel that, by galactic treaty, was monitored by all species. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the input panel. What could he possibly say that would be believed? A human janitor claiming that Telosian ambassadors were keeping humans in suspended animation as part of some mysterious harvest. It sounded insane, even to him. Then an idea struck him. The terminal had a data transmission function. If he could download evidence from the chamber's central console, he might stand a chance of being believed. But to do that, he would need to return to the main chamber, where the Telosians were still searching for him. Tyler closed his eyes, weighing his options. He could attempt to escape through the maintenance shafts, which might lead to an exit somewhere else in the ambassador's residence. But even if he got out, without evidence, his story would never be believed. The Telosians would deny everything, and he would likely disappear, either dismissed from his position or, worse, joining the Horizon's crew in suspended animation. No, he needed evidence, and the only way to get it was to go back. With grim determination, Tyler retraced his path through the maintenance shaft. When he reached the alcove, he peered cautiously into the main chamber. The Telosians had split up, each searching a different section of the vast room. Carrick was nearest to the central console, examining readouts on one of the screens. Tyler needed a distraction. Looking around the maintenance alcove, he spotted a cluster of power conduits running along the ceiling. If he could short-circuit one of them, it might create enough of a distraction for him to reach the console, download the mission logs, and escape back into the shaft. Using his maintenance toolkit, Tyler carefully exposed one of the conduits and created a small cross-connection that would trigger a power surge. Then he waited until Carrick's moved away from the console before activating the short circuit. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Sparks erupted from the ceiling near the chamber entrance, followed by a cascade of electrical discharges that temporarily plunged half the room into darkness. The Telosians rushed toward the disturbance, their skin flashing with patterns of alarm and confusion. In the chaos, Tyler slipped from his hiding place and dashed to the central console. His hands flew across the controls, accessing the mission logs he'd viewed earlier. He inserted a data chip from his toolkit into a compatible port and initiated a download of the critical files, Commander Reynolds's final log, the earlier entries describing the first contact with the Telosians, and the current status of the cryogenic pods. The download seemed to take forever, though in reality it was less than 30 seconds. As the progress bar reached completion, Tyler heard Carrick's voice rising above the commotion. "It's a diversion. Check the console." The data chip ejected with a soft click. Tyler grabbed it and sprinted back toward the maintenance alcove. He'd nearly reached it when he felt something wrap around his ankle, a tendril of energy that seemed to emanate from Ambassador Carrick's outstretched hand. Tyler crashed to the floor, the data chip skittering across the smooth metal surface. "A valiant effort, human," Carrick said, approaching slowly. The ambassador's skin was now a deep, pulsating crimson, but ultimately futile. Tyler struggled against the energy tendril, which tightened painfully around his ankle. "Why?" he managed to gasp out. "Why did you take them? What is this harvest you're planning?" A ripple of amusement crossed Carrick's features. "Your species is so young, yet so presumptuous. You believe you are meant to join the galactic community as equals. The truth is far more practical." The other two Telosians had now surrounded Tyler, their expressions unreadable. "Humanity possesses certain genetic peculiarities," Carrick continued. "Neurological structures that develop in isolation from your homeworld. Structures that, when properly harvested, provide essential components for Telosian technological advancement." Tyler's blood ran cold as understanding dawned. "You're farming us. The crew of the Horizon. You've kept them here for 3 centuries to grow something in their brains." A crude but essentially accurate description, Carrick acknowledged. "The process requires generations of careful cultivation. The Horizon's crew was our first human acquisition. Over the centuries, we've collected others, lost explorers, isolated colonies, all contributing to the greater advancement of Telosian civilization." "And now?" Tyler asked, stalling for time as he surreptitiously reached for a laser cutter in his toolkit. "What happens now that I've discovered your secret?" Carrick's skin shifted to a dispassionate blue. "Now you will join our collection. One more specimen for the harvest. And in a few days, when the current crop is fully mature, we will extract what we need and dispose of the remaining biological material. As we have done before. As we will continue to do." Tyler's fingers closed around the laser cutter. With a desperate lunge, he activated the tool and sliced through the energy tendril holding his ankle. Carrick recoiled with a shriek of pain or surprise. Tyler couldn't tell which. He scrambled to his feet, diving for the data chip that lay just a few meters away. His fingers closed around it just as one of the other Telosians grabbed at his shoulder. Tyler swung the laser cutter in a wide arc, forcing his attacker back. "Seal the exits," Carrick commanded, recovering quickly. Tyler didn't wait to see if the order was carried out. He bolted for the maintenance alcove, squeezing into the narrow shaft as energy tendrils lashed at the opening behind him. The shaft seemed even tighter than before, or perhaps it was just the adrenaline making his movements clumsy. He could hear the Telosians attempting to follow, but their taller, more slender forms weren't well suited to the confined space. Tyler reached the communications junction and immediately set to work. He inserted the data chip into the terminal and began composing a message to accompany the evidence. "To all monitoring stations, this is Tyler Grant, human maintenance worker on Zalarian Station. I have discovered evidence of a Telosian conspiracy involving the abduction and exploitation of human beings, including the long-lost crew of the ESS Horizon. Attached files contain proof of my claims. The Telosian ambassadorial residence contains a hidden chamber with over 1,000 humans in cryogenic suspension. Request immediate investigation and intervention. Tyler hesitated, then added a personal note. If I don't survive, tell Earth what happened here. Tell them about the horizon. Tell them what the Telosians have been doing to us for centuries. He set the message to transmit on all emergency frequencies and pressed send. The terminal chimed as the transmission began, broadcasting his message and the damning evidence across the galaxy. Almost immediately, alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. The Telosians had detected the transmission and were attempting to block it, but the old Earth technology was using protocols they weren't familiar with. The message would get through, but Tyler's escape route was now compromised. The Telosians knew where he was, and it was only a matter of time before they found a way to reach him or shut down the section of the ship he was in. He needed another way out. Studying the junction around him, Tyler noticed another maintenance shaft leading in a different direction. Without hesitation, he squeezed into it, leaving the communications terminal behind. This shaft was even narrower than the first, forcing Tyler to wriggle forward on his stomach. He had no idea where it led, but anything was better than waiting for the Telosians to catch him. After several minutes of painful crawling, Tyler's hand encountered empty air. The shaft ended in a steep drop. He cautiously extended his tablet's light into the darkness, revealing a larger maintenance chamber about 2 meters below. It appeared to be some kind of access room for the ship's life support systems. Tyler lowered himself carefully into the chamber. Unlike the cryogenic area, this room showed signs of age. Dust had accumulated on the equipment, and some of the displays were dark or flickering. It seemed the Telosians had maintained only the systems necessary for keeping their specimens viable. A directional sign on one wall caught Tyler's eye. Emergency escape pods, 15M. His heart leaped. If the escape pods were still functional, he might have a way off the ship. But even if they weren't, the pod bay would certainly have an access point to the exterior of the hidden vessel. Following the signs, Tyler made his way through a series of increasingly dilapidated corridors. The ship's condition deteriorated the farther he got from the cryogenic chamber, with some sections so damaged that he had to find alternate routes. It was clear that only a small portion of the original vessel had been maintained over the centuries. Finally, Tyler reached the escape pod bay. As he'd feared, the pods themselves were long gone, either jettisoned during whatever event had befallen the horizon or repurposed by the Telosians. But the bay's exterior hatch remained, a potential exit point. The hatch controls were offline, but the manual override was still accessible. Tyler applied all his strength to the emergency lever, feeling it gradually give way under his weight. With a groan of protesting metal, the hatch began to open, revealing not the vacuum of space but a dimly lit corridor beyond. Tyler peered through the opening. The corridor appeared to be part of the ambassador's residence, specifically a service area that wasn't included in any of the official schematics. The Telosians had built their residence around the captured Earth vessel, concealing it completely from the outside world. Checking to ensure the coast was clear, Tyler squeezed through the hatch and into the corridor. He needed to reach a public area of the station where he could contact security directly. His transmission might have been received, but he couldn't count on an immediate response, not when Telosian influence extended throughout the station's administration. Tyler oriented himself based on the ambient sounds and air circulation patterns, a trick he'd learned during his years of maintenance work. The gentle hum of the station's main system suggested he was near one of the primary circulation hubs. If he could reach that, he could follow the main conduits to a public area. He moved cautiously through the service corridor, freezing at every sound. After several tense minutes, he reached a maintenance access door that, according to the markings, should open into one of the station's public promenades. Tyler pressed his ear against the door, listening for any sign of pursuit, then carefully eased it open. To his relief, he emerged into a bustling commercial area filled with beings from dozens of species. The cacophony of languages and the press of bodies provided perfect cover. Tyler immediately headed for the nearest security kiosk, trying to appear calm despite his racing heart. The security kiosk was staffed by a Dragorian officer who regarded Tyler with reptilian indifference. "State your business, human." "I need to report a crime," Tyler said, trying to keep his voice steady. "An extremely serious crime involving the Telosian ambassador." The Dragorian's expression didn't change, but its posture stiffened slightly. "Accusations against diplomatic personnel require substantial evidence." Tyler produced the data chip. "I have evidence, and I've already transmitted it across all emergency channels. Station security should be receiving it now, if they haven't already." As if on cue, the officer's communication device chimed. The Dragorian consulted it, and for the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed its scaled features. Surprise, possibly even shock. "Wait here," the officer commanded, stepping into a private communication booth at the rear of the kiosk. Tyler waited, constantly scanning the promenade for any sign of Telosian pursuit. Minutes ticked by, each feeling like an hour. Finally, the Dragorian emerged, its manner dramatically changed. "Tyler Grant," it said formally, "you will come with me immediately. Station command requests your presence." Before Tyler could respond, a commotion erupted at the far end of the promenade. Ambassador Carrix had appeared, flanked by a dozen Telosian security personnel. Their skin displayed aggressive patterns of red and black as they scanned the crowd. "We need to go now," Tyler urged the Dragorian. "They're looking for me." The officer assessed the situation quickly. "This way," it said, leading Tyler through a security door behind the kiosk. "We have a direct transport to command." They had just stepped into the transport tube when Tyler heard Carrix's voice rising above the crowd noise, demanding that station security detain a dangerous human saboteur. Then the transport doors closed, and they were whisked away toward the station's command center. The journey took less than a minute. When the doors opened, Tyler found himself in a secured area he'd never seen before, the operational heart of Zalarian Station. Representatives from all 7 major species were present, gathered around a large holographic display that was currently showing footage from the cryogenic chamber Tyler had discovered. A human woman stepped forward, Captain Mirachon, the highest-ranking human on the station, though still subordinate to the representatives of more advanced species. Her expression was a mixture of shock and barely contained fury. "Mr. Grant," she said, her voice tight with emotion, "your transmission has caused quite a stir." "Captain, Tyler began, but Chun held up a hand to silence him. "The evidence you've provided is being verified, but preliminary analysis confirms its authenticity. The implications are staggering." She turned to the assembled representatives. "This constitutes a violation of multiple galactic treaties, including the Sentient Rights Accord and the First Contact Protocols." The Vexillarian representative, a crystalline being that communicated through light patterns, flashed a sequence that Tyler couldn't interpret. Captain Chin nodded in response. "Yes, Earth authorities have been notified. Their response ships are already en route, though they won't arrive for several days." "The Telosians will deny everything," Tyler said. "They'll claim the evidence is fabricated. Ambassador Carrix is already calling me a saboteur." "That would be difficult," said another voice, deep, resonant, and distinctly non-human. A Morvaxian stepped forward, its massive form dwarfing even the tallest beings present. The Morvaxians were renowned for their strict adherence to legal principles, which made them the de facto arbiters in many interspecies disputes. The transmission was received by multiple independent entities, the Morvaxian continued, and the biological signatures detected in the hidden chamber match archived records of the ESS Horizon's crew. There can be no denial. Tyler felt a surge of relief, quickly tempered by concern. What about the people in suspension? There are over 1,000 humans in there, some preserved for centuries. Captain Chin's expression softened slightly. Medical teams are being assembled. Once we secure the area, they'll assess the condition of the survivors. She seemed to struggle with the term. The technology involved is ancient by current standards, but our specialists believe most can be safely revived. "And the Telosians?" Tyler asked. "What happens to them?" The assembled representatives exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, the Morvaxian spoke again. What you have discovered, Tyler Grant, goes beyond a single incident. It suggests a pattern of behavior that may extend back centuries and involve numerous human populations believed lost to accidents or natural disasters. If proven true, the diplomatic and legal repercussions will be severe. The Telosian Confederation will be suspended from the Galactic Council pending a full investigation, added a Novalian representative. Their access to shared technology and resources will be restricted. Tyler nodded, trying to absorb the magnitude of what was happening. Just this morning, he had been a simple maintenance worker, invisible to the powerful beings who now listened to his every word. Now he stood at the center of what might become the most significant diplomatic crisis in recent galactic history. What happens now, he asked. Now, said Captain Chun, we secure the evidence and protect the survivors. A joint security force is already moving to seal off the Telosian ambassador's residence. As if to confirm her words, the holographic display shifted to show real-time footage of station security forces, led by Dragorian officers, surrounding the diplomatic residence. Ambassador Carrick's could be seen at the entrance, skin flickering between patterns of rage and fear as the ambassador was formally detained. And you, Mr. Grant, Chun continued, will need protective custody until Earth representatives arrive. Your discovery has made you a rather significant figure. Tyler nodded, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of the day's events catching up with him. I just want to make sure they're safe, he said, gesturing to the image of the cryogenic chamber. Those people have been prisoners for centuries. They deserve to know what happened to them, to have a chance at a life again. They will, promised Chun, and your role in their liberation will not be forgotten. The days that followed passed in a blur for Tyler. He was moved to a secure suite in the station's diplomatic quarter, a far cry from his usual modest quarters in the maintenance section. Station security maintained a constant presence outside his door, ostensibly for his protection. Reports came in regularly about the ongoing investigation. The hidden vessel turned out to be only a small section of the original ESS Horizon, carefully preserved and concealed within the structure of the ambassador's residence. Medical teams had begun the delicate process of reviving the suspended crew members, starting with those who had been in suspension the longest. 5 days after Tyler's discovery, Earth's response force arrived. A flotilla of ships led by the EDF Indomitable, the flagship of Earth's defense fleet. With them came diplomatic representatives, medical specialists, and a full investigative team. Tyler was summoned to a formal debriefing with the Earth delegation. The meeting took place in Zalarian's Grand Council chamber, a space usually reserved for major diplomatic functions. Tyler felt distinctly out of place in his newly issued formal attire, a stark contrast to his familiar maintenance uniform. Admiral Helena Reyes, commander of the Earth delegation, was a stern-faced woman with streaks of gray in her dark hair. She listened intently as Tyler recounted his discovery and the events that followed. Mr. Grant, she said when he'd finished, I'm authorized to inform you that your actions have been designated as being of the highest service to humanity. The President herself has requested to meet with you upon your return to Earth. Tyler blinked in surprise. Return to Earth? I haven't been to Earth in over a decade. Admiral Reyes nodded. We understand, but these circumstances are exceptional. What you've uncovered goes far beyond the Horizon's crew. Based on the data you retrieved and subsequent investigation, we now believe the Telosians have been conducting these operations for centuries, targeting isolated human outposts and vessels. She activated a holographic display showing a map of known space, with dozens of points illuminated in red. Each of these represents a human settlement or ship that disappeared under mysterious circumstances over the past 3 centuries. We now have reason to believe the Telosians were involved in many, if not all, of these incidents. Tyler stared at the display, the implications sinking in. How many people? Tens of thousands, at minimum, Reyes replied grimly. The Horizon was just the beginning. After establishing first contact with humanity, The Telosians apparently identified certain neurological structures unique to humans that were valuable to them. They've been harvesting these structures ever since, while maintaining the facade of diplomatic relations. Tyler felt sick. And the other species? Did they know? Reyes exchanged glances with a Morvaxian representative who had joined the meeting. The Morvaxian's deep voice rumbled through the chamber. There is no evidence of widespread knowledge among the council species. However, certain high-ranking individuals within various administrations may have been complicit, either through direct knowledge or deliberate ignorance. These matters are now subject to the most rigorous investigation. What about the survivors? Tyler asked, thinking of the faces he'd seen in the cryogenic pods. How are they doing? For the first time, Admiral Reyes's expression softened slightly. The revival process is complex, particularly for those who have been in suspension the longest. But our medical teams report encouraging progress. Commander Reynolds was successfully revived yesterday, the first of the Horizon's senior crew to regain consciousness. Tyler leaned forward, suddenly eager. Would it be possible for me to meet him? Reyes considered for a moment, then nodded. I think that could be arranged. In fact, I believe he's expressed an interest in meeting you. Later that day, Tyler was escorted to the medical facility that had been established specifically for the revival and treatment of the suspended humans. The facility occupied an entire section of the station, with Earth medical personnel working alongside specialists from allied species. Dr. Miranda Ochoa, the chief medical officer of the Earth delegation, met Tyler at the entrance. Mr. Grant, she greeted him warmly. Admiral Reyes informed me you'd be coming. Commander Reynolds is awake and stable. We've briefed him on the basic situation, though we've been careful not to overwhelm him with too much information at once. She led Tyler through the facility, past rooms where medical teams monitored recently revived patients. Many were still unconscious or heavily sedated, their bodies adjusting to being active after centuries of suspension. Finally, they reached a private room near the center of the facility. Through an observation window, Tyler could see an elderly man sitting up in a medical bed, his attention focused on a data pad in his hands. Despite his apparent age, there was a vitality to him, an alertness in his eyes that belied his years. Commander Reynolds, Dr. Ochoa called softly as she entered the room. You have a visitor. This is Tyler Grant, the man who discovered your ship. Commander James Reynolds looked up, his weathered face breaking into a smile that momentarily erased the lines of age. Mr. Grant, he said, his voice stronger than Tyler had expected. I've been hoping to meet you. Tyler stepped forward, suddenly unsure of what to say to a man who had been in suspended animation for 3 centuries. Commander, it's an honor. Reynolds chuckled. The honor is mine, son. From what they tell me, you've done something extraordinary. You found us when no one else was even looking. Tyler shook his head. It was an accident. I was just doing my job. The best discoveries often happen that way, Reynolds replied. Please sit. I have so many questions, and I suspect you do as well. For the next hour, they talked. Reynolds shared his memories of the Horizon's mission and the first contact with the Telosians, filling in details that hadn't been included in the mission logs. In return, Tyler described how humanity had evolved in the centuries since the Horizon's disappearance. Earth's expansion through the stars, the establishment of colonies on dozens of worlds, the eventual acceptance into the galactic community. Though I'm beginning to think our acceptance wasn't quite what it seemed, Tyler added grimly. Reynolds nodded, his expression darkening. They told me about what the Telosians were doing, using us as cultivators for some kind of neural structure. He shook his head in disbelief. All this time, we thought we were making history with a peaceful first contact. Instead, we were just the first batch of lab rats. I'm sorry, Tyler said, not knowing what else to say. Don't be, Reynolds replied firmly. You found us. You exposed the truth. And from what the doctors tell me, many of my crew will survive the revival process. That's more than I ever dared hope for after all this time. Dr. Ochoa, who had remained discreetly in the background during their conversation, stepped forward. Speaking of which, Commander, I need to check your neural patterns again. We're still monitoring for any long-term effects from the Telosian influence. Reynolds nodded, then turned back to Tyler. They tell me you're going to Earth. Will you do something for me? Of course, Tyler said without hesitation. When you get there, visit the Memorial to the Lost at New Geneva. The Horizon's crew should be listed there. Tell them we're coming home. Tyler felt a lump form in his throat. I will. I promise. 2 weeks later, Tyler stood on the observation deck of the EDF Indomitable, watching as Zalarian Station receded in the distance. The great ship, along with its escort vessels, had been converted to accommodate hundreds of revived humans from the Horizon and other vessels discovered in subsequent investigations of Telosian facilities. Not all had survived the revival process. Those who had been in suspension the longest, or whose pods had been subject to the most extensive Telosian modifications, often suffered complications that the medical teams couldn't overcome. But many had survived, over 700 from the Horizon alone, with more being revived daily from other hidden chambers discovered throughout Telosian territories. Quite a view, isn't it? Said a voice beside him. Tyler turned to find Dr. Emily Caldwell, the Horizon's chief medical officer, standing next to him at the viewport. In the 2 weeks since her revival, she had recovered remarkably well, though like all the survivors, she had been profoundly affected by the knowledge of what had happened to her and her crew. It is, Tyler agreed, though I can't say I'll miss it much. Caldwell smiled faintly. I imagine not. After what you discovered, I doubt Zalarian will ever be the same. She paused, studying his face. How are you holding up? This can't be easy for you either. Tyler shrugged. Honestly, I'm still trying to process it all. A month ago, I was just a maintenance worker that nobody noticed. Now I'm heading to Earth to meet the president. Well, for what it's worth, I think you've earned it, Caldwell said. What you did was incredibly brave. And not just the discovery itself, but the way you handled it, getting the evidence out, making sure it couldn't be covered up. I just did what seemed right at the time, Tyler replied. That's often all any of us can do, Caldwell said thoughtfully. Make the best decisions we can with the information we have. She gazed out at the stars. For us, the survivors, the universe has changed overnight. Everything and everyone we knew is gone, centuries in the past. We're relics, living artifacts from another time. Tyler wasn't sure how to respond to that, but Caldwell continued before he could find the words. But we're also witnesses. Witnesses to a deception that has shaped humanity's place in the galaxy for centuries. And now that the truth is known, things will change. They have to. Tyler nodded. Reports had been streaming in from across human space as news of the discovery spread. Earth's diplomatic corps had withdrawn from all joint initiatives with the Telosian Confederation. Military vessels were being repositioned to protect human settlements. The other council species had issued formal condemnations and launched their own investigations into possible complicity among their officials. The galaxy was in turmoil, and at the center of it all was a simple truth. Humanity had been deceived from its first steps into the interstellar community. What happens next? Tyler asked, not really expecting an answer. Caldwell smiled wryly. That's the question, isn't it? For us personally, for humanity, for the galaxy at large. She turned to face him directly. But whatever comes, I think it will be better than what was. The truth usually is, even when it's painful. Tyler nodded slowly. I hope you're right. So do I, she replied. In the meantime, I hear you promised Commander Reynolds a visit to the Memorial to the Lost. I did, Tyler confirmed. I'd like to come with you, if that's all right, Caldwell said. I think many of us would. It would be meaningful to see how Earth remembered us, even as we returned to tell them their remembrance wasn't in vain. Tyler felt the weight of the request, the symbolic importance of it. I'd be honored, he said simply. As the Indomitable engaged its faster-than-light drive, propelling them toward Earth, Tyler took one last look at the receding station. Somewhere in that massive structure was a garden with a sealed metal door, behind which a terrible truth had been hidden for centuries. And now that truth was free, carried by the survivors returning to a home they had never thought to see again. The garden would wither. The door would remain open. and humanity would step into a new chapter of its galactic history, eyes wide open this time, aware of both the wonders and the dangers that waited among the stars. 1 month later, Tyler stood at the edge of a vast crowd gathered in New Geneva's Memorial Park. The day was clear and bright, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of the carefully tended flowers that surrounded the memorial to the lost, a massive structure of marble and glass that bore the names of every human ship and colony lost to the void. At the center of the gathering stood the survivors, nearly 1,000 strong now, as more had been successfully revived in the weeks since the initial discovery. They were dressed in a mixture of modern clothing and specially created uniforms that echoed their original ship designs, a bridge between their past and the present they now inhabited. President Eliana Cortez approached the podium, her expression solemn as she surveyed the assembled crowd. 3 centuries ago, she began, humanity took its first tentative steps into the galactic community. We believed we were welcomed as equals, partners in the grand adventure of interstellar civilization. Today, we know the truth of that welcome was far more complex and troubling than any of us imagined. She gestured to the survivors. These brave men and women, the crews of the Horizon and dozens of other vessels, paid the price for our naivete. They were not lost to the dangers of space, as we had believed, but taken, harvested, exploited by those who saw in humanity not partners, but resources. A murmur passed through the crowd, a mixture of anger and sorrow. But they have returned to us, the president continued, her voice strengthening. Thanks to the courage and curiosity of one man, Tyler Grant, and the resilience of the survivors themselves, they have come home. And with them comes a new understanding of our place in the galaxy. Tyler shifted uncomfortably at the mention of his name. Despite the medals and commendations, the interviews and public appearances, he still hadn't adjusted to his newfound fame. The revelations of the past month have shaken the foundations of interstellar relations, President Cortez went on. The Telosian Confederation has been suspended from the Galactic Council. Investigations continue into the extent of their activities and the possible complicity of other species. Diplomatic and trade agreements are being reevaluated across human space. She paused, looking directly at the survivors. But today is not about politics or diplomacy. It is about homecoming. It is about acknowledging a wrong that can never be fully righted, but which we can ensure never happens again. It is about welcoming back those who were taken from us, and honoring the memory of those who could not return. With that, she stepped aside, and Commander Reynolds took her place at the podium. Though still frail from his centuries in suspension, he stood straight and proud, his voice carrying clearly across the hushed gathering. On behalf of the crew of the ESS Horizon, and all the survivors who stand with me today, I thank you for this welcome. When we set out on our mission, we knew the risks. Space exploration has always demanded courage in the face of the unknown. But none of us could have imagined the nature of the danger we would encounter, or the length of our absence. He looked out at the crowd, his gaze steady. We return to an Earth transformed, to a humanity that has grown and expanded beyond our wildest dreams. We come as strangers to our own species, separated by centuries of history and experience. Yet we are bound by something stronger than time, by our shared humanity, by the spirit of exploration and resilience that defines us. Reynolds gestured to the memorial behind him. For 300 years, our names have been inscribed here, a testament to Earth's commitment to remembering those who venture into the stars. Today, we stand before our own memorial, living testaments to the fact that humanity will not abandon its own, even across the gulf of centuries. A cheer went up from the crowd, swelling until it seemed to fill the entire park. Tyler found himself joining in, caught up in the emotion of the moment. As the ceremony concluded, Tyler made his way through the crowd toward the memorial. He had promised Reynolds he would visit it, and though circumstances had changed dramatically since that promise was made, he intended to keep it. The memorial to the lost was a curved wall of black marble, inscribed with thousands of names, ships, colonies, individual explorers who had ventured into the unknown and never returned. Near the center, Tyler found what he was looking for. ESS Horizon, lost in the Vega sector, 2175. 1,247 souls aboard. It's strange to see it, said a voice beside him. Tyler turned to find Dr. Caldwell standing there, gazing at the inscription. To know that for centuries, people came here to remember us, never knowing we were still out there, trapped in that garden chamber. But you were found, Tyler said quietly. You came home. Caldwell nodded, reaching out to trace the engraved letters with her fingertips. Yes, thanks to you. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. Do you ever wonder why it was you? Why? Out of all the maintenance workers and diplomats and officials who must have passed through that residence over the centuries, you were the one who found that door? Tyler had asked himself the same question many times in the past month. I don't know, he admitted. Curiosity, maybe. Or just being in the right place at the right time. Or perhaps something more, Caldwell suggested. The right person in the right place at the right time. Someone with both the courage to look behind that door and the integrity to act on what he found. Before Tyler could respond, they were joined by Commander Reynolds and several other members of the Horizon's senior crew. Tyler, Reynolds greeted him warmly. I see you kept your promise. Tyler nodded. It seemed important, even with everything that's changed. It is important, Reynolds agreed. Remembrance always is. He gestured to the gathered survivors. We've been discussing what comes next. For us, for humanity, the President has offered resources, support for our integration into modern society. But many of us feel we have a different purpose. What kind of purpose? Tyler asked. Reynolds exchanged glances with his fellow crew members. We are living witnesses to a deception that has shaped humanity's relationship with the galactic community for centuries. We carry in our very bodies the evidence of what was done to us. And we have the perspective of outsiders, people who knew humanity before its current entanglements with other species. We believe we have a role to play in what comes next, added Caldwell, in helping humanity reconsider its place in the galaxy, in ensuring that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. Tyler considered this. You're talking about becoming advocates. More than that, Reynolds said. Guides, perhaps, or watchdogs. The galaxy is a more dangerous place than humanity has been led to believe. We've learned that lesson the hard way. And what about you, Tyler? Caldwell asked. What comes next for the man who changed galactic history? Tyler laughed softly. I haven't thought that far ahead. I was offered a position in the diplomatic corps, believe it or not. They seem to think I have a talent for first contact situations. You discovered the truth that eluded thousands of others for centuries, Reynolds said. I'd say that's a significant talent. Maybe, Tyler conceded. But I'm not sure that's the right path for me. He looked at the memorial, at the thousands of names etched into its surface. I think I might want to be part of making sure this doesn't happen again. That no more names are added to this wall because of deception or exploitation. Reynolds nodded approvingly. Then perhaps we have common cause, Mr. Grant. As they stood before the memorial, discussing possibilities for the future, Tyler reflected on the strange journey that had brought him to this moment. From a routine maintenance assignment to a discovery that had shaken the foundations of humanity's place in the galaxy. From invisibility to recognition beyond anything he could have imagined. But more than the acclaim or the opportunities now open to him, Tyler valued something simpler. The knowledge that he had made a difference. That because of his curiosity and determination, over 1,000 people had been freed from centuries of exploitation. That a truth had been revealed that would reshape humanity's understanding of its interstellar neighbors. In the garden of a Telosian ambassador, behind a sealed metal door, Tyler Grant had discovered not just the missing crew of the ESS Horizon, but a new chapter in human history. A chapter where humanity would move forward with eyes wide open, aware of both the wonders and the dangers that waited among the stars. As the sun began to set over New Geneva, casting long shadows across the memorial to the lost, Tyler knew that whatever path he chose next, it would be guided by the same simple principle that had led him to open that garden door. The belief that truth, no matter how long hidden or how difficult to face, was always worth seeking. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.